What's up, guys? It's your boy, the essential John L. Crossfire, aka the real main event, aka the Rogue Soldier, and today you're about to learn firsthand just what it's like to be caught in the crossfire. But above all else, prepare yourself, because in this very moment, today, right now, you are about to be caught in conversation. Hello one and all, and welcome to episode 53 of Caught in Conversation. This is the first episode of year 2, or I guess season 2, if you will, of the podcast. As always, like it states in the intro, I am the one and only, the essential John L. Crossfire, aka the Rogue Soldier, aka the real main event, aka the host of this whole damn thing, constantly repeating myself over and over and over, but I've got to get that brand out there, brother. Now, I've watched a lot of wrestling this week, and I mean a lot of wrestling. Not much else I can do while I am recovering from my surgery, not that that's a bad thing by any stretch, but anywho, I've had 3 main things to talk about on this episode, and because I'm doing that, I thought I'd do them all in a different format, just to try and keep things interesting. But I'm going to be doing the pros and cons, again, just my opinion, of AEW Double or Nothing 2022, running through the results with some quick highlights of Wrestling Revolver's Vegas Vacation, and then I'm going to be doing a full run-through, a full review, a full recap, or dare I say a recap-ish, as I like to say here on the show, of Warrior Wrestling 22. Everything is going pretty smoothly so far with my recovery. I still can't see out of the left eye, but they're going to, it's going to take up to 3 months to a year to be able to see out of it, and it'll be even a further year once the stitches are taken out before I've got 100% vision of it. But slowly, shapes and colours are becoming more vivid and sharper, and that's really exciting. It's also making me trip out momentarily at times when I first realised it as well. But onwards and upwards, as they say. With that being said, I'm just going to hit you guys with the song of the week, and we're going to jump straight into it, because as I said, it's a lot of wrestling. The song of the week this week is Rise by State of Mind. This is actually a rock cover of a Katy Perry song, and it's freaking dope. Dare I say it, it's an absolute banger. Slaps super hard. Maybe I should give it the old chef's kiss just to pop my mate Dolan. But I've been really vibing the hell out of it the last couple of weeks, even more than I usually would. I listen to this song fairly often, almost daily at times, and I'm honestly shocked while I was going through my list that I haven't actually made it the song of the week in the past. But the song is Rise by State of Mind. That's M-I-N-E, like the seagull from Nemo. Mine. Almost positive I made that joke in the past when I've used other State of Mind songs, but here we are. Again, that song is Rise by State of Mind. And as I said, chef's kiss, it's a banger. Go check it out. But we're going to move straight on. We'll go straight into the wrestling. And I'm starting it off with the pros and cons of AEW Double or Nothing 2022. And again, this is just my opinion. If you agree or disagree, let me know. If you disagree, maybe we can have a friendly debate. I'm not going to have an argument because that's just not my style. But talk wrestling with me. Come get caught in conversation with me. See what I did there? Anywho, the pros of AEW Double or Nothing 2022 are Wardlow being made to look like an absolute freaking star. Really enjoyed that. Seeing Rancid perform live for Ruby Soho and Rich Ward for Britt Baker respectively was pretty dope. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Rancid, and as I've mentioned a few times, Fozzy are one of, if not my all-time favourite band, so that was really cool seeing the Duke Rich Ward himself. He looks like his sickness did affect him a little bit that he had a few months ago, but he's looking good now, which is good to see. But yes, seeing Adam Cole and Britt Baker as a couple get their joint moment as the respective men's and women's winners of the Owen Hart, Memorial Tournament was pretty cool. Although somewhat of a con was as soon as Adam Cole won his match, you just kind of knew that Britt was going to win hers. And I guess it kind of would have been obvious, either way, whether Britt had have won first or Adam had have won first. But nonetheless, it was really cool to see them get their moment, as I said. Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti have really leaned in to the boos. It's actually great to see that they're listening to the fans. It was great. And I really liked, and just this is just me from an aesthetic, standpoint, but I really liked the Maleficent-inspired gear that they had in their entrance too, just as a side note. The Arena Anarchy match, or the Anarchy in the Arena match, was freaking awesome from start to finish. I absolutely loved the touch of them having Wild Thing on loop while they were brawling. It did give me old school ECW and New Jack / the Gangsters vibes. Heel Chris Jericho unplugging and snapping the soundboard to make the music stop was a brilliant touch. Mrs. Crossfire popped for that as well. I really enjoyed the AEW Tag Team Championship match. A number of near falls had me on edge. They had me on the edge of my seat. A lot of them very believable, but I do feel like it did drag on in parts as well. Everyone was kind of just trying to get their spots, and I'm a big fan of Brian Cage. Get your shit in, brother, but it just seemed too spotty, and I guess that's modern wrestling. That's just me, but I really did enjoy the match overall as a whole, and I'd put it down as a pro. The cons for me were having Danhausen and Hook on the pre-show. On one hand, I understand Hook, he really isn't quite ready for a pay-per-view just yet, and I understand they wanted to give Wardlow the moment that he got on the main card, but just with how over Hook and Danhausen are, I feel like it would have been a great way to get them on the card, even as a second match, just to get the fans starting off hot. But here's what it is. I didn't like, and that's why it's a con, I guess, them making a bigger deal for the entrance of Paige Van Zant over Scorpio Sky, who is the TNT champion, was pretty silly in my opinion. I get it, it's her debut, make her look like a star in her debut, but you really shouldn't do that, at the expense of your champion. And the good news is Scorpio was the one that got the pin when his team picked up the win, but it felt meh to me, felt iffy. I just wouldn't do it that way. That's just me. Feel like it was a con. And the big one was CM Punk winning the championship so soon. Now, obviously, since this, and as I record this, he's just announced that he's injured. He has to go out for surgery. So he's going to be relinquishing the championship, and they're going to have an interim champion. So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't as injured as they originally thought when they went into, the match with Hangman. But I just feel like if you knew he was going to have surgery, what was the point of taking the fucking title of Hangman in the first place? As I said, it just felt like it was too soon anyway. Especially, and the big reason I'm not a fan of this was they had 2 years of building up Hangman Page to finally beat Kenny Omega. And then I feel like they did all that build-up, and then his entire title run, I feel like they just dropped the ball on. And again, this is all just my opinion, but it felt like the moment Hangman took the championship, he took a back seat. I mean, he had that 1 hour time limit draw with Danielson, which, don't get me wrong, it was a good match. I enjoyed it, but what other than that stands out to anyone, really? It just feels like a whole 2 years has essentially just been flushed down the drain. And as for the actual match itself, it just seemed very sloppy. I did enjoy the storytelling in the last couple of minutes, though, of the match leading to the finish. And of course, I am happy for CM Punk. I'm not happy that he's now injured, because that sucks, but I am still a huge CM Punk mark. But I just feel AEW fans specifically preach about how great their long-term storytelling is, and especially the way that they build Hangman up. And then, as I said, my voice just cracked there, my bad. As I said, his whole title run just felt like a flop. And that's just my opinion, but I didn't like it. Maybe now that he has lost the championship, things might get more interesting as he tries to kind of win it back. But yeah, I'd be super happy too if when Punk comes back, it does lead to a heel turn down the line, because I feel like CM Punk going full SES mode against Hangman Page is almost too obvious not to do it. Overall, the talent on the show, they busted their ass, but I'm honestly not entirely sure it was worth the 32 Australian dollars that I paid to watch it, especially in comparison with other AEW pay-per-views that I've had in the past. But it is what it is. I still did enjoy, a handful of matches, but yeah, I look forward to seeing what the Forbidden Door pay-per-view does look like alongside New Japan next month, or this month, I should say, later this month. But I don't know, AEW Double or Nothing as a whole didn't do much for me, but I guess there was enough there to kind of do something at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, it was a very very subpar show, in my opinion. But again, it's all subjective. People loved it. People hated it. I was kind of on the fence, but whatever. But the results of Wrestling Revolver's Vegas Vacation were: match 1, we had a sudden death scramble. We had Blake Christian versus Gringo Loco versus Anthony Green versus Bodie versus Cole Radrick versus ASF versus Jordan Oliver versus Nick Wayne. Your winner here was Blake Christian. There was all the flips, tricks, and choreography in this one, even including a suicide dive from the referee. People will complain about that one, but I popped for it. Whatever, it is what it is. That was probably the highlight of the match, to be honest. But match number 2, we had a singles match. We had Billy Starks defeating Shazza McKenzie. Billy actually showed a little bit of a heel attitude throughout the actual match, which was great. It was something different, but both competitors have a sign of respect after the fact. Match number 3, we had Trey Miguel defeating Kenny King to retain the Revolver Remix Championship in one of the best comedy matches I've seen in a long time. Mrs. Crossfire went on record and said that that may be the best comedy match that she's ever seen, which is pretty cool. But basically, Trey Miguel, as the Remix Champion, he gets to choose the stipulation, and he made it a smoke-off here, which meant that any time a wrestler kicked out of a pin attempt, the man trying to get the pin had to take a toke of Trey's vape, which had marijuana in it. It had the devil's lettuce. Whatever. I voted to legalize it. It is what it is. But great bits of action in here, along with the comedy too, though. Both myself and Mrs. Crossfire were losing our shit at this one. The whole match, and just especially the finishing sequence, was just absolutely great, in my opinion. We had one of the most creative double downs I think I've ever seen in this one as well, which I give props to both guys. Kudos to both guys for that, because what haven't we seen in professional wrestling at this point? It was just fantastic all around. Good job to both guys. Match number 4, we had a Fatal 4-Way match. We had Crash Jackson defeating Willie Mack, Alex Hammerstone, and Grizzly Cal Jack. Crash Jackson with a huge pop-up powerbomb on Grizzly Cal Jack for the win. Grizzly Cal Jack, never seen him before this. He is a big dude, so kudos to him for getting the height that he did, posting the way that he did on the finishing powerbomb as well. Good stuff there. Match number 5, we had Effie defeating Dan the Dad in a dad versus daddy battle. Good stuff there. Effie used the ropes. He cheated. He used some shenanigans. Match number 6, we had Josh Alexander defeating Speedball Mike Bailey. Match number 7, we had Alex Colon defeating Jimmy Jacobs via submission in a Vegas street fight that was very enjoyable. It was fairly tame considering what both men are capable of, but I enjoyed every second of it nonetheless. Match number 8 saw Rich Swann defeating Matt Cardona to become the new Impact Wrestling Digital Media Champion. And then match number 9 / the main event, we had JT Dunn defeating Chris Bay in a no DQ match to become the new Wrestling Revolver Champion. This makes Dunn a 2-time champion. Dunn actually lost the title in a scramble match to Chris Bay the night prior at a Wrestling Revolver versus FSW show, which hopefully I'll get a chance to check out at some point. I've looked at the card. It looks like a pretty solid card. But due to interference in this one from Alley Catch, JT Dunn does get the strap back. After the match, we have acting commissioner for the night in D'Lo Brown come out. He lays out JT Dunn with the Sky High Spinebuster, which popped the shit out of me, and D'Lo Brown and Chris Bay send the fans home happy. Not as good as the past couple of shows, but still really enjoyed it. Really looking forward to the next couple of shows, especially the Cage of Horrors show coming up in July. Of course, you've got the actual Cage of Horrors match itself, which is it's a scaffold, light tube, cage, deathmatch thing with just a bunch of people. And then there's also Billy Starks versus Ruby Soho on that card, which I'm really looking forward to as well. And they have announced that we will finally be getting the Switchblades, John Moxley and Sami Callihan versus the Wolves, Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards in the very near future. That match was meant to happen last year before Sami Callihan was unfortunately injured. But again, I'm so damn keen for that one. Highly recommend that you guys go out of your way, though, to find that Trey Miguel versus Kenny King match. Because as I said, it's a comedy match, but there's a lot of great action in there. The whole thing had me laughing, told a great story. Definitely match of the night here for me. I think Mrs. Crossfire agreed with me as well, but 100% go check that out. Now, I actually got through both of those two shows quicker than I was expecting. I'm hoping I'm not talking too fast for you guys. As I record this, it's about 1:30 in the morning. I slept most of the day due to my eye, unfortunately, being in pain. And then I've had an energy drink now before recording this to kind of try and boost myself. So I'm probably not going to sleep. I'm probably not going to sleep all day tomorrow now. But yeah, I'm sorry if I'm talking too fast, but I got through that way quicker than I was expecting. But I'll head into the match of the week nonetheless, and then I'll go into the main portion of this show, which is my review, my recap-ish of Warrior Wrestling 22. But the match of the week this week is Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer versus Cactus Jack and Raven at ECW November to Remember 1995. Now, this was a bit of a random one. I kind of pulled it out of my ass, if I'm honest. I had no idea what I was going to choose for the match of the week this week. Because as I said, I watched a lot of wrestling. I toyed with the idea of making it that Trey versus Kenny match. But as I was taking my notes, I looked over and my bloody looking Terry Funk micro brawler was just staring right at me. And then Mrs. Crossfire helped me narrow it down to some old school ECW specifically. And now we've ended up here. Everyone gets color in this one. They use all the gimmicks, including Tommy Dreamer smashing a VCR over Raven's head. Remember those? I still have mine from when I was a kid around here somewhere, and if I hooked it up, I guarantee you it'd still work. But unfortunately, I'm missing one of the cords. I must go on eBay one of these days or something and track down one of those cords. But yeah, I still have my VCR. A little bit of a side note there, a little bit of a fun fact with John Crossfire. But yeah, just a very good match. I really enjoyed it. They continue brawling well after the match actually ends. It's just an overall fun time. And then on top of that, I'd realized after the fact, as I was adding this to the list where I keep track of all my songs and matches of the week, that in episode 3, so 50 episodes ago exactly, that the Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis match, which was the match of the week that week, was from the very same event as this match here. So how about that for a coincidence? Nonetheless, the match of the week this week, once again, was Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer versus Cactus Jack and Raven at ECW November to Remember 1995. But now for my recap-ish of Warrior Wrestling 22. They have quickly became one of my favorite promotions, has Warrior Wrestling, as is probably really obvious, well documented on the podcast by now. This was airing live from the border of St. Louis, Missouri. Unfortunately, going into this one, current Warrior Wrestling champion Will Ospreay did suffer a kidney infection and had to be pulled from this card. He got pulled from a couple of other cards that he was on as well, but unfortunately was pulled from this card. So the scheduled main event between Ospreay and Davey Richards was instead billed as Davey Richards versus a mystery opponent. But match number 1 saw a singles match. We had Adam Brooks, the loose ledge himself, versus Warhorse, the man that rules ass. I was so damn keen for this one straight off the bat because, as many people know, I'm a huge mark for both of these guys, and just what a fantastic way, in my opinion, to kick off the show. Mrs. Crossfire popped really well when she saw that this match was going to be on the card. Brooksy's been absolutely killing it in the US, and in some aspects, and they told the story on commentary here, he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder, so to speak, after, Ring of Honor was forced to release everyone from their contracts. I've documented that on the pod as well, that whole situation. But hopefully, when Tony Khan can get that up and running again, Brooksy can make his way back there, because I feel like, he is a perfect fit for Ring of Honor, and Warhorse is another guy that would be a perfect fit for a Ring of Honor style environment too. I mean, look what it did for Danhausen. He was already very popular amongst, the hardcore indie fans, but once he was exposed to the Ring of Honor fans, his stock went up even further. So really hope that one of or both of those guys can make it to Ring of Honor in the not too distant future. But Warhorse has already been on AEW. He faced Cody Rhodes when Cody Rhodes was doing the open challenge for the TNT title. I could easily see, Warhorse back in that TNT title picture, and Adam Brooks is a guy that he could hang with. Could you imagine Adam Brooks versus Scorpio Sky? Let's just throw that out there, because why not? But The fans were solidly behind Warhorse in this contest here. There was an absolutely beautiful transition here into a Scorpion Deathlock by Warhorse as well. Mrs. Crossfire even popped for it as well. And I could be biased because, as I said, I am such a big mark for both these guys. But the pacing in this match and the chemistry that these guys had was just fantastic, was just off the charts. A lot of back and forth, false finishes on both sides, most of which were fairly well placed. But eventually, after getting the knees up and thwarting a Brooksy Swanton Bomb attempt, Warhorse slaps on the Scorpion Deathlock for a second time. Brooksy has no choice but to tap out. Your winner via submission was Warhorse. And as I said, they had great chemistry, and I would definitely love to see these guys compete again in the future. Warhorse headbangs with the Warrior Wrestling faithful before heading backstage. Match number 2 saw another singles match. We had Camaro Jackson versus Mike Outlaw. Both these guys, they said, are coaches at Davey Richards Training School. So you know straight off the bat there that they've got their fundamentals down pat. I don't recall actually seeing either of these guys before. I have heard Mike Outlaw's name thrown around on the internet, but I've never really seen much footage. But as I said, they're both coaches at Davey's school. So you just know straight off the bat, that it's going to be a good match at least. Camaro Jackson hit a beautiful Road Warrior Animal-esque power slam in the early goings of this match that popped me good. They said on commentary as well that it was reminiscent of Rick Steiner, and I could very well see that. He also hit a very nice Arn Anderson-like spinebuster. This was just a great, exhibition type match that I thoroughly enjoyed. They used this to continue to hype up, the two competitors' mentor in Davey Richards being in the main event later on. Very well done here. I definitely do want to see more of these guys, though, after seeing this match, especially Camaro Jackson. Something about him just screamed out to me. Mike Outlaw definitely held his own as well. But yeah, Camaro Jackson goes on to get a win with a big lariat, which he calls the Peacemaker. I dig it. But again, yeah, something about Camaro Jackson just really stood out to me. Match number 3 saw Yuya Yamura versus Alex Coughlin. This was another exhibition match, this time in the form of New Japan Young Lions, both students of the LA-based New Japan Dojo. I've seen Alex Coughlin's name pop up a few times online, but much like I just said for, Mike Outlaw, this is my first time seeing a Coughlin match in full, at least from memory. I do love the whole android persona that he has, though. That popped me really good. Fairly technical match, as is to be expected when they're both students of the New Japan Dojo. Also had a couple of nice, stiff, strong style strikes in there, but again, very much expected when it's the Japanese strong style of wrestling. The finish was a little bit botched when Yamura's shoulder kind of came off the mat when it wasn't meant to, but Coughlin hit a beautiful deadlift brainbuster from a sitting position for the win. Both myself and Mrs. Crossfire lost our absolute minds because of that. But yeah, Alex Coughlin picks up the win. Both guys show respect after the fact. Match number 4, we had a Lucha exhibition match. We had Dragon Bane versus Alpha Wolf. I really love the way that they built the card up. Like, you had the super indie style between Brooksy and Warhorse to kick off the card, and then you had 3 different styles of exhibition matches. These two luchadors here actually brothers in real life, both trained by their father, second generation stars. I did not know that. I have seen more of Dragon Bane than I have of Alpha Wolf, but I'm very impressed with what I've seen of both of them beforehand nonetheless. I did have a bit of a chuckle during the entrances though, as Dragon Bane uses the same entrance theme as the magnificent Matt Gage uses here in Australia, and Alpha Wolf came out to Gangsta's Paradise, which of course, shout out to my boy Barry the Super Blake, SBC. He's used that in the past. Both guys very evenly matched. Again, they're brothers, so you'd expect that. They're very good form for 3 exhibition matches to have 3 sets of opponents that evenly matched. Duh. We had some freaking loud chops in this one. There's just something about luchadors and the way they throw those open hand chops, the overhand chops rather, that are just nasty. Makes you cringe and smile all at the same time, kind of when you're watching a Walter or a Gunther match, as he's now called. But just very good stuff here, and the Warrior Wrestling fans showed their appreciation with a "This is awesome" chant. They did the Evan Bourne / Matt Sydal Randy Orton spot with a shooting star press into a cutter out of nowhere, by God, which actually popped the absolute heck out of me because I genuinely didn't see it coming, and I understand the irony in that situation right now as I recover from a cornea transplant, but Dragon Bane would go on to hit the shooting star press, but Alpha Wolf kicks out, but Dragon Bane hits a poison rana, gets the win. Both guys show respect, some brotherly love, if you will, and a few fans threw some money into the ring, so that's good for those guys at least. They get an extra payday on top of their payday. Why not? Match number 5, we had Mike Bennett versus Casey Navarro. I was kind of bummed because it was my understanding that the Casey Navarro versus Brian Cage match was meant to be here, but that's going to be at the next show now, Warrior Wrestling 23. Huge fan of Mike Bennett, though, as I've documented here on the pod, so I was still keen to see how this one unfolded. Casey Navarro is the current Get My Shot invitational holder with, the Warrior Wrestling Coin of Chance, meaning he can challenge for any Warrior Wrestling Championship at any time, similar to WWE's Money in the Bank or Impact Wrestling's Feast or Fired. The story remains the same here. Casey Navarro, despite the fact that he is the current, Get My Shot invitational holder, he is still on a losing streak. So the whole thing here is that he's coming out, he's got a chip on his shoulder. I didn't get to take as many notes as I would have liked for this match as I was trying to eat my dinner during the time that I was watching this one, but Casey Navarro just showing a ton of, desperation throughout the contest due to, the aforementioned losing streak, hence why I said he had, a chip on his shoulder. Mike Bennett got a near fall with an absolutely beautiful chef's kiss spike pile driver. Navarro returns in kind with a near fall of his own off a very splooshy looking frog splash. Shout out to the 3 people that got the pun that I did there. Eventually, after his trademark running sliced bread, Casey Navarro breaks his losing streak. The streak is over. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the match with Casey Navarro and Cage at the next show, and it's good to see Casey actually building a bit of momentum heading into that match. Match number 6, we had a triple threat match. We had Dante Leone versus Lance Archer versus Myron Reed. Frank the Clown would join commentary for this one and was entertaining as always. Basically, he needed to overcome his fear of Lance Archer so that he could move on with his life, was Frank the Clown's reasoning for being on commentary here. Dante Leone and Myron Reed jumpstart this match. They quickly double-team Lance Archer to get him out of the equation. This didn't last very long, though, as Dante Leone quickly found himself being chokeslammed across the apron, courtesy of the Murderhawk monster himself in Lance Archer. Archer then would slowly dissect Myron Reed. Archer has fun throwing around both men simultaneously, while Frank the Clown loses his ever-loving mind on commentary due to his disdain for Lance Archer. Frank was honestly the highlight of this match, in my opinion. May have actually overshadowed the competitors a little bit, which is not what you want to do, but yeah, I feel like, honestly, that's what this match was here. This match was kind of built to get Frank the Clown over, for the people watching at home, while the people in the audience got to see a kick-ass triple threat match. But Archer tried to pin both men at the same time. They both kick out. Archer goes on to hit the blackout on Dante Leone and gets the win. This match, in some aspects, did feel like it was the let me up match, which is disappointing because all 3 guys did, they did a pretty solid job. But as I said, I think it was more that they were trying to, build up Frank the Clown, and especially with what was to come later on in the show. But match number 7, we had a singles match. It was Deonna Purrazzo versus Tootie Lynn. Tootie Lynn really took it to Deonna in this match. The story was that Tootie, she's very young in her career, but she's already very well-traveled for her experience level, but she really wants to use kind of Deonna almost as a stepping stone to get noticed in the mainstream, so to speak. And this was a mix of strong style strikes and technical stuff. Both women very proficient with the Fujiwara armbar technique in their own right. And this does build up to a spot at the end where the 2 women, they have dueling armbars, constantly countering in and out of each other's respective hold. But eventually Deonna shifts momentum. She wraps Tootie up in a pin for the win. Somewhat of a short match, but Tootie Lynn had a great showing, even in defeat. Match number 8 saw a singles match. It was Jonah versus Jeff Cobb. This is the pinnacle of a hoss fight. I was so here for it. Both these guys very capable of doing stuff that guys that are usually their size just shouldn't be able to do. Myself and Mrs. Crossfire were very hyped for this one, as much like the opener between Brooksy and Warhorse were massive marks for both guys here. We started with a stalemate. Both guys tried to get the other off their feet, which led to an interesting double down. They kept running into each other, and eventually both men were sent crashing to respective sides of the ring, and they both rolled out. Still remained fairly even for the most part, as expected. Seems to be the theme of this whole show, really. Jeff Cobb hit Jonah with a fucking massive deadlift pump handle slam that got a holy shit chant from the Warrior Wrestling, faithful, and Cobb's got a near fall for himself, and I myself jumped off my armchair and yelled, holy shit, when I saw it. And Mrs. Crossfire as well was like, what the fuck? Just awesome spot there. And then Jonah outdoes him. He follows it up with a huge superplex that I have no idea how the ring didn't move. Mrs. Crossfire popped really, really huge for that one. She almost jumped out of her seat off the superplex. And then Jeff Cobb, though, he gets a quick jackknife cover as they have a bit of back and forth, and he gets a quick pin. Cobb tries to shake Jonah's hand, but Joda was having none of it and walks away disappointed. And then we had a memorial service for Frank the Clown's broken arm. Of course, current women's champion in Athena broke his arm, wink wink, with a kick. Frank announces that for one night only, Janai Kai will be his client. Janai Kai, of course, scheduled to face Athena here for the Warrior Wrestling Women's Championship, which leads us into match number 9, a singles match for the Warrior Wrestling Women's Championship. Janai Kai, the challenger, versus Athena, the champion. The only championship match on this Warrior Wrestling card. Interesting that only one champion's here, but I get it. As I said, the main event was meant to be Will Ospreay and Davey Richards, but card subject to change. Here we are. Frank the Clown gets a few sneaky shots on Athena throughout the match, about the midway point of the match, which leads to Athena almost being choked out by Janai Kai, but Athena manages to battle back. Janai Kai well and truly showed in this match why they call her the Kick Demon. Athena was well and truly feeling the wrath of her deadly feat. Athena would hit her diving stunner, the O-Face, goes for the pin, but Frank the Clown pulls the referee out of the ring, interrupting the count. Athena goes after Frank, who runs away backstage, and then Athena breaks the arm of Frank the Clown's associate in Trevor Outlaw. This led to Janai Kai trying to take advantage of the situation. She got multiple submission fault finishes, but eventually Athena manages to roll through, gets a submission of her own, and forces Janai Kai to submit to retain the Warrior Wrestling Women's Championship. Both women really worked hard in this match. I did enjoy it, but by this point, it did feel like the show was starting to drag on, so I'm glad that we were heading into the main event. But match number 10 / the main event, we had Davey Richards versus I'm a Machine, Brian effing Cage. Brian Cage, the mystery opponent here for Davey Richards. I enjoyed the promo leading up to this as well, where they showed footage of Davey Richards training at his dojo. Casey Navarro joins commentary on this one, hyping up his match with Cage at the next show, Warrior Wrestling 23. And we got a chance to kind of get inside the mind, so to speak, from a kayfabe aspect of Casey Navarro and how he feels about finally breaking that losing streak. Brian Cage and Davey Richards brawled around ringside while commentary did a great job of putting both men over. Both guys did did the old get your shit in, brother, as is appropriate for any, Brian Cage match, Mr. GMSI himself. Davey Richards got a really close near fall off a trademark top rope double stomp and another near fall off a huge brainbuster, but Cage was able to counter out of an ankle lock, hits an F5 for a near fall of his own. Casey Navarro leaves commentary to help, wink wink, Brian Cage, and then after a distraction he accidentally, wink wink, hits Brian Cage with his coin of chance instead of Davey Richards. This leads to Davey Richards hitting a pile driver on Brian Cage, picking up the win. Davey Richards cuts a promo, putting over Brian Cage. Wasn't the best promo I've ever heard, if I'm honest, but he got his point across nonetheless. As the ring fills with Davey Richards' teammates, his students, and his coaches, he stands in the ring and he calls out Will Ospreay, and he still says he wants that match, and he doesn't want to wait too much. He doesn't want to wait too long. Better have that match sooner than later. He puts over all of his students and the coaches, who are all based in St. Louis, so a little nice, hometown cheap pop to end the show. I think the opener was easily the best match of the card, although, as I have said a couple of times now, I may be biased because I am a big mark for both Warhorse and Adam Brooks. I did thoroughly enjoy the Dragonbane versus Alpha Wolf match too, and I just really want to see more of both Mike Outlaw and Camaro Jackson, especially Camaro Jackson, because as I said when I was talking about that match, there was something about him that just really screamed out to me. Overall, it was a solid show, but as I said, it did feel like it was dragging on towards the end. Maybe that's just me because I am ADHD, but yeah, it felt like it dragged on a little bit. But regardless, I am really keen for Warrior Wrestling 23 in a couple of weeks' time. Will Ospreay will be back. He will be defending the Warrior Wrestling Championship in a War of Attrition match. One of the very first shows I talked about on this podcast, and I believe that actually was the same episode that was episode 3. That's why I had the Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis match as the match of the week for that week. Was a War of Attrition match. It was the Lucha War of Attrition match where Aramis became the first ever Warrior Wrestling Lucha Champion. So I'm really keen to see what they pull out with this one. There's some pretty big names in there. Matt Cardona was one of them, but he's just suffered a torn bicep. So it'll be interesting to see who replaces him and what that match does look like when we get there. But I feel like that's a good point to take it home. Otherwise, you guys are going to think that this is dragging on. This is actually still one of my quicker episodes that I've done in a while. I got through all of that way quicker than I was expecting. As I said, hopefully I'm not talking too fast. If I am, I'm sorry, guys. This is who I am as a person. I've done so many episodes now with Mrs. Crossfire by my side and so many interviews now that doing these solo episodes, although that was all I did for the first 20 episodes, these solo episodes they feel awkward at times, especially when I'm recording, at all hours of the night. I'm trying not to wake everyone up, but thank you guys, as always, for your continued support. As always, check the links in the description box. The link tree does contain all my social medias as well as my Pro Wrestling Tee store, and the description will also have any upcoming events that I have any sort of hand in. I'm recording this Saturday night, just in time for this to go out at the usual time of 12 p.m. on Sunday. And as of now, I've heard nothing but good things about the CPW Clash in the Capital show, which went down earlier tonight as I record this. I can't wait to get a chance to go back and watch that. Congratulations go out to my young protege in Jackson Thornhill, who overthrew the dastardly Reverend Diaz and became the new CPW Inter-Suburbs Championship. His first ever championship. His first championship of what I'm sure is going to be many, especially he's very young in his career. He's only had a handful of matches. And the fact that he's already won a championship speaks volumes to me. I've been wanting to have Jackson on here for a while, as I've been a part of his journey. I'm proud to say I've had a big hand in it since the very beginning, so I need to get him on even sooner than later now. Strike while the iron is hot, so to speak, to kind of help him get his name out there as much as I can, because I have no doubt that he will be a star for years to come. He's the future of this country, if not the industry. And I know that that's a big statement, but I have a lot of faith in this young man. He's super fucking talented, and I couldn't be any more proud of him. I'll stop the gushing with pride now until he's actually on here. But yeah, ICW Australia, the parent company or sister company of CPW, depending on how you look at it, will return on August 20th. But in the meantime, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to have the Masked Wrestlers League returning for Chapter 2, Volume 2 of MWL on July 9th. I will put the link to both of those respective Facebook event pages. Check the links for further ticket info, venue info. Both of them, of course, are in the ACT. They're in Canberra. The song of the week this week was Rise by State of Mind. The match of the week was Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer versus Cactus Jack and Raven at ECW November to Remember 1995. I am the essential John L. Crossfire, and you were just caught in conversation.